Before we dive into today's story, if this is your first time watching one of our videos, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us till the very end. And if this story moves you, share your thoughts in the comments and send it to a friend who needs to hear it. Now, let's begin. The Seabrook Cove Resort stretched endlessly along nearly 3 miles of flawless California shoreline, its creamy white Spanish-inspired buildings glowing under the late afternoon sun while the deep blue Pacific shimmered beyond the cliffs. Tall palm trees swayed lazily in the ocean breeze, and the massive infinity pools appeared to melt into the horizon, creating the illusion that water and sky were one. It was the kind of place people saved for years just to spend one weekend, a destination reserved for celebrities, executives, and ultra-wealthy travelers who wanted to escape into polished perfection. Yet inside a modest rental SUV, rolling slowly up the grand, palm-lined driveway, a very different kind of conversation was unfolding. In the back seat sat Natalie Carter, 28 years old, dressed simply in jeans and a soft gray sweater, her dark hair pulled into a low ponytail. She looked calm on the outside, but inside, she felt the familiar mix of amusement and quiet tension. From the front passenger seat, her mother, Linda Carter, twisted around slightly, her face wearing that familiar expression of loving concern that had followed Natalie for years. "Now, Natalie, I just want to prepare you," Linda said gently, lowering her voice as if the resort itself might overhear. "We booked you the most affordable room. It's still very nice, of course, but it's not oceanfront like your father's and mine." Natalie offered a polite smile. "That's thoughtful, Mom," she replied evenly. Her father, Robert Carter, tightened his grip on the steering wheel and nodded in agreement. "We did look at getting you an ocean view, too," he added, "but those rooms were $800 a night. We figured you'd rather save your money." Natalie repeated quietly, "800 a night," letting the number hang in the air, not reacting, even though she knew exactly how much profit each of those rooms generated. In Natalie's world, numbers like $800 were meaningless in a very different way than her parents imagined. To Linda and Robert, that price represented extravagance and sacrifice. To Natalie, it was a fraction of the nightly revenue of a property she personally owned. But she kept her voice neutral. "That makes sense," she said calmly. Linda smiled with relief. "Exactly. For a weekend getaway. That's just not practical for someone in your situation." That phrase, "your situation," landed like it always did. Over the past several years, Natalie had somehow become the family's quiet worry. The daughter who chose creativity over stability. The one who moved to Los Angeles for freelance work. The one they assumed was barely scraping by. Her younger brother, Ethan Carter, sitting beside her in the back seat, leaned closer and whispered, "Don't worry, Nat. At least you're still staying here." Natalie chuckled softly. "True. I'll survive." In reality, she was looking at a resort she had personally purchased 2 years earlier for over $300 million, renovated from top to bottom, and transformed into one of the most profitable luxury destinations on the West Coast. But none of that showed on her face. "The important thing is that we're all together for your anniversary," Natalie said warmly. 30 years is a big deal." Robert smiled and reached across to squeeze Linda's hand. 30 wonderful years," he said proudly. Their story was simple and strong. College sweethearts, a steady life in suburban Arizona, 3 kids raised on love and discipline, and a small but successful accounting firm built through decades of hard work. They weren't rich, but they were stable. They were proud of that. They had no idea their youngest daughter had quietly built something far beyond anything they imagined. From the front seat, Natalie's older sister, Marissa Cole, let out a breath of amazement as the resort came fully into view. "I still can't believe we're actually staying here," Marissa said, pressing her face closer to the window. "Look at those pools. This place is unreal." Marissa was 32, married to a software developer, and worked as a school administrator. She and her husband had saved for years just to afford this weekend. Natalie could hear the excitement in her sister's voice, mixed with disbelief. "Dad really went all out," Ethan added. Linda beamed with pride. "Your father has been planning this for months," she said. "He wanted somewhere truly special for our anniversary." Robert nodded. "When we saw the photos online, it looked like paradise. Even if it means we won't take another big vacation for a few years, it felt worth it." Natalie felt a familiar pinch of guilt tighten in her chest. Her family was stretching their finances to celebrate in a place she owned. They were worried about costs, while she knew every operational number, every staffing ratio, every profit margin. She knew exactly how much money the resort made per night. Yet she had chosen silence. "Natalie, are you sure you can afford your part of the expenses this weekend?" Linda asked softly. "We know things have been tight since you moved to Los Angeles." Natalie nodded. "I can manage," she said. "Don't worry." Robert added quickly, "We're not judging, sweetheart. Creative careers are unpredictable. If you need help, just say the word." Natalie forced a small smile. "Thanks, Dad." What they thought was freelance graphic design was actually her role as founder and CEO of Carter Luxury Hospitality Group, a rapidly expanding chain of elite resorts she had built from nothing. The valet stand came into view, and several uniformed staff stepped forward with professional smiles. Natalie immediately recognized two of them. She had personally approved their promotions months earlier. She kept her eyes forward, careful not to make eye contact. "Look at this service," Marissa whispered. "They have more staff than guests." Linda nodded approvingly. "That's how you know it's a quality place." Natalie thought quietly, "I approved that staffing model myself." The resort operated on a 3-to-1 staff-to-guest ratio, one of the highest in the industry. It was expensive, but it created an experience guests raved about, keeping occupancy near full year-round. "Good afternoon, and welcome to Seabrook Cove," the head valet said warmly. "Checking in today?" Robert stepped out proudly. "Yes, Carter Party." "Excellent," the valet replied. "Front desk is just inside." As they walked through the grand entrance, Natalie watched her mother's eyes light up at every detail: the marble floors, the fresh orchids, the ocean breeze drifting through open archways. Linda was soaking it all in. Natalie felt both proud and sad. Proud that her mother was enjoying something she had created. Sad that Linda had no idea her own daughter was the reason this place existed. The lobby opened up in dramatic fashion. Soaring ceilings, panoramic ocean windows, elegant seating areas, and a massive stone fireplace. "Wow," Ethan said, slowly turning in place. "This is incredible." Natalie answered lightly, "It's nice, yeah." She had stayed here dozens of times, often in the penthouse, reviewing operations and meeting executives. At the front desk stood Vanessa Ruiz, the guest services director, someone Natalie had personally hired and mentored. Natalie caught Vanessa's eyes for half a second and gave the smallest shake of her head, a silent request. Vanessa's professionalism never wavered. "Good afternoon," she said. "Welcome to Seabrook Cove. How may I assist you?" Robert handed over the reservation details. "We have 3 rooms for the weekend." Vanessa typed quickly, then paused. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter in an oceanfront junior suite. Mr. and Mrs. Cole in a garden view. Mr. Ethan Carter in a standard room. And Miss Natalie Carter in a standard room as well." Linda nodded. "Yes, though if possible, we'd love for Natalie to be close to us." Vanessa hesitated, her eyes flicking briefly toward Natalie, confusion clear. The system had automatically flagged Natalie's name for executive upgrades, a protocol set years ago. Before Vanessa could speak, a tall man in a tailored suit stepped out from the back office. It was Daniel Hawthorne, the resort's general manager, a hospitality veteran Natalie had personally recruited from a competing luxury brand. The moment his eyes landed on Natalie, recognition flashed. "Miss Carter," he said warmly. "Welcome back." Shall I have the penthouse prepared as usual? The air froze. Linda blinked. Penthouse. Robert echoed. Daniel looked confused. Miss Carter owns Seabrook Cove. She's the founder of Carter Luxury Hospitality Group. Silence crashed down around them. Marissa whispered, Natalie owns this hotel? Natalie closed her eyes for a brief second. The secret was out. The silence in the lobby felt heavy, thick enough that Natalie could almost hear her own heartbeat. Linda's hand slowly rose to her chest, her eyes wide and unfocused. Natalie, what did he just say? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Robert turned slowly toward his daughter, his face pale with disbelief. Sweetheart, he said carefully, do you actually own this resort? Natalie swallowed. There was no avoiding it now. Yes, Dad, she said quietly. I own this resort, and 17 others. Ethan let out a shaky laugh that sounded half like shock and half like amazement. You're joking, he said. This is a prank, right? Daniel cleared his throat, still smiling proudly. Not a prank at all. Miss Carter founded the company herself. She built it from one small property into a luxury hospitality group that operates across several states. Marissa dropped into a nearby chair. Natalie, you've been letting us think you were barely getting by. Natalie knelt in front of her sister. I never said I was struggling. I just didn't explain. Linda finally found her voice. All those times I worried about you paying rent, all those times I offered to help. Tears filled her eyes. Why didn't you tell us? Natalie looked at all of them. Because I wanted to be your daughter first, not a business story. I didn't want everything to change. Daniel stepped back respectfully. I'll give you some privacy, he said. But please know your daughter is one of the most respected owners in the industry. He walked away, leaving the family alone with the truth. They sat together in a quiet seating area of the lobby, surrounded by soft music and ocean light, none of them quite sure what to say first. Robert finally spoke. So all this time, he said slowly, when we thought you were just doing freelance work, you were building a company. Natalie nodded. I worked in hotel management after college. I saved everything. I bought a failing bed and breakfast in Northern California. I renovated it myself, worked day and night, learned everything: operations, finance, guest experience, design. When it became profitable, I used that to buy the next property, then the next. Marissa shook her head in disbelief. And you never thought to mention you owned hotels? Natalie gave a small smile. At first, it felt too fragile. I was afraid if I talked about it, I'd jinx it. Then later, I was afraid you'd see me differently. Ethan leaned forward. Different how? Like someone who didn't need you anymore, Natalie said honestly. I didn't want to lose being just Natalie, the one who calls Mom to complain about dating and texts Dad for advice. Linda reached over and took Natalie's hand. Sweetheart, needing us and being successful aren't opposites. Her voice trembled. We could have been proud of you and worried about you. We're parents. That's what we do. Natalie nodded, tears in her own eyes now. I know. I just didn't want pressure. I wanted to prove to myself I could do it alone. Robert exhaled slowly. And you did. You did more than anyone could have imagined. Vanessa returned with a new set of key cards, speaking softly and respectfully. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, we've moved you to the presidential suite, she said gently. Mr. and Mrs. Cole, you're in an executive oceanfront suite. Mr. Ethan Carter, deluxe ocean suite. And Miss Carter, the penthouse is ready whenever you're comfortable. Linda laughed weakly through tears. The cheapest room, huh? Natalie smiled sadly. I guess that part didn't age well. Marissa looked at Natalie with a mix of pride and hurt. Do you know how many times we defended you when people said you should get a real job? She said. We had no idea you were running a company worth hundreds of millions. Natalie nodded. I'm sorry for that. I never meant to make you worry. Ethan grinned. So, you're basically a secret billionaire. Natalie sighed. Please don't ever call me that. Robert stood and placed his hands on Natalie's shoulders. I'm not impressed by the money, he said firmly. I'm impressed by the discipline, the courage, and the fact that you built something from nothing. That's what matters. Linda added softly, You didn't inherit success. You created it. That makes me prouder than any number. Natalie finally felt something lift off her chest, a weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying for years. Later, standing on the penthouse terrace as the sun melted into the Pacific, the family took in the breathtaking view in quiet awe. So this is where you stay when you're working, Marissa said, stepping closer to the glass railing. Sometimes, Natalie replied, but most of the time I'm in meetings, site visits, or reviewing reports. It's not as glamorous as it looks. Ethan laughed. You're standing in a private infinity pool overlooking the ocean. I think glamorous still counts. Linda turned to Natalie. Are you happy? She asked gently. Natalie thought about the long nights, the risks, the stress, and the thrill of building something meaningful. I am, she said. I love what I do. I love creating places where people celebrate, rest, fall in love, heal, and make memories. That's why I started this. Robert smiled proudly. Then you chose the right path. That evening at dinner, they raised glasses of champagne, not just to 30 years of marriage, but to honesty, growth, and new understanding. To Mom and Dad, Natalie said, for teaching me to work hard and believe in myself. To Natalie, Robert replied, for becoming more than we ever dreamed and still being our daughter. Linda added, to family, even when we don't know the full story, love is still real. They clinked glasses, laughter and emotion mixing freely. As the night wound down and the waves whispered below the cliffs, Natalie stood quietly for a moment, watching her family laugh together in the glow of candlelight. For years, she had believed that hiding her success protected her independence and her relationships. Now she understood that it had only kept her from sharing her joy with the people who mattered most. She had built a company, yes, but she had also built walls, and those walls had finally come down. Walking back inside, Linda wrapped an arm around her waist. You don't have to hide anymore, her mother said softly. Natalie leaned into her. I don't want to, she replied. For the first time, Natalie felt fully seen, not just as a daughter, not just as a business owner, but as a whole person. And in that moment, standing in a resort she had created, surrounded by the family who had raised her, she realized that the greatest success she had achieved wasn't measured in revenue, properties, or net worth. It was the courage to finally let the people she loved know who she truly was, and to trust that they would love her even more because of it. The next morning, sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, painting the living room in warm gold. Natalie was already awake, sitting at the dining table with her laptop open, reviewing overnight reports from other properties out of habit. Even on her parents' anniversary weekend, the rhythm of her business never fully stopped. Linda appeared in the doorway in a plush white robe, holding a cup of coffee, pausing when she saw Natalie working. You're always doing this, aren't you? Linda asked gently. Natalie looked up and smiled. Most days, yes. This is how everything stays running smoothly. Linda walked over and sat across from her daughter. All those years we thought you were just freelancing, she said softly. You were carrying this much responsibility alone. Natalie closed her laptop slowly. I didn't feel alone, she said. I had my team, but with you and Dad, I didn't want to bring stress into your lives. Linda reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Sweetheart, being part of your life includes sharing the stress and the success. We would have wanted to be there for you. Later, Robert and Ethan joined them for breakfast on the terrace. Robert looked out at the ocean and shook his head. I keep thinking about how many times I gave you financial advice, he said with a small laugh. Meanwhile, you were running a company bigger than most firms I've ever audited. Natalie laughed too. Some of your advice was actually pretty solid, Dad. Ethan grinned. So, basically, our family dinners were unknowingly consulting meetings. For the first time, the truth felt normal, not shocking, not heavy, just part of who Natalie was. That afternoon, the family walked the private beach together, shoes in hand, letting the cool water wash over their feet. Marissa stayed close to Natalie, quieter than usual. Finally, she spoke. I need to say something, she said. Natalie turned to her. What's on your mind? Marissa took a breath. Part of me is incredibly proud of you, but part of me also feels left out, like there was this huge part of your life that we weren't allowed into. Natalie nodded slowly. That's fair, she said. I never meant to shut you out. I was scared. I didn't want to disappoint you if things failed. Marissa stopped walking and faced her. But you didn't fail. You succeeded, and we missed being part of that journey. Natalie felt her throat tighten. I know, and I'm sorry. If I could go back, I'd tell you sooner. I'd let you cheer for me instead of worrying about me. Marissa smiled sadly. You know we would have cheered the loudest. Nearby, Robert and Linda watched their daughters with soft smiles. No matter how old they get, Linda said quietly to Robert, they still need each other. Robert nodded. And now they finally get to be honest with each other. The family continued walking, laughter slowly returning, the tension easing with every step along the shore. That evening, back in the presidential suite, the family gathered one last time before bed, sitting together with dessert and coffee, talking late into the night. The conversations were different now, no longer filled with quiet concern about Natalie's future, but full of curiosity, pride, and shared dreams. So what's next for you? Ethan asked. Natalie smiled thoughtfully. Growth, she said. New properties, new ideas, but also balance. I don't want success to come at the cost of family anymore. Linda reached over and rested her head on Natalie's shoulder. Then promise us something, she said softly. No more secrets. No more carrying everything alone. Natalie wrapped an arm around her mother. I promise. Robert raised his coffee cup. To honesty, he said. To family. And to a daughter who taught us that success can come in forms we never expect. Natalie looked around at the people who had shaped her life, supported her in ways they never even realized, and loved her before they ever knew her accomplishments. In that moment, she understood something clearly. The resorts, the money, the business, all of it was meaningful. But none of it compared to the quiet peace of being fully known and fully loved. And for the first time, Natalie didn't feel like she had to choose between her success and her family. She finally had both. Like and subscribe to my channel for more contents like this, and let us know where you are watching from under the comment section.